Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Here we go.
I'm Assistant Chief Megan Howard of the Houston Police Department. This critical incident briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Houston on May 13, 2023. You are about to see video footage that is related to this incident. HPD conducts thorough investigations into officer-involved shootings. These typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. It is important to note that we are in the very early stages of the investigation, and we continue to review additional evidence as it is collected and analyzed. The videos you are about to see can be graphic and may be difficult to watch. These videos may also contain strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. At approximately 11:30 p.m., Houston police officers were dispatched to a disturbance call at a residence on Palmyra Street. A witness there reported to officers that a man holding a knife had come by and demanded they turn off their loud music. While officers were speaking with the witness, the suspect, Michael Bryant Hayes, returned to the scene holding a knife in each hand. Officers gave Mr. Hayes multiple commands to drop the knife, but he refused to comply. Mr. Hayes drew closer to one of the officers, and the officer discharged his weapon, striking Mr. Hayes. Officers then rendered aid to Mr. Hayes until HFD paramedics arrived. Mr. Hayes was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced deceased. No officers or bystanders were shot.
Did you call, sir? What's up?
It's a problem. You parking again.
We can't get through the road because there's so many cars. So yeah, it's kind of an issue. But okay.
I'm just coming to see you.
All right. That music's gonna have to get turned down unless y'all have a permit from the city. They can get it to go later, but it has to be like a special circumstance, so. Alright, here, let's move over here so I can kind of block some of the noise. Alright, what's going on?
No, earlier we had a neighbor across the street. He came over there. Yeah, that's the same guy. He threatened us to shoot us. No,
okay.
He got a picture of it. He came inside, but like when I went up to him to approach him, like, oh, what's going on? He just screamed at me. He's like, hey, y'all gotta turn that off.
Okay.
If y'all turn it off by the time, we're gonna have a big problem. I'm gonna come back at like 10:30.
Did he show you any weapons or anything?
He got a picture. Yeah, after like, I guess he was screaming at us, so we were like, we were telling him to get off the property.
Yeah.
Like, you were inside, you didn't even.
Hey, can you have someone go tell them to turn that music down?
But yeah, he had a knife, and then he pulled it out. He said he'll come back and he'll shoot us. Yeah.
Okay, and how did he threaten you exactly? Did he say he's going to stab you?
Yeah, he said I'll come back. I'll come back and I'll shoot it up. I don't care.
Okay. Alright, give me 1 second. Hey, sir, what's that in your hands? Hey, sir, what's that in your hands? Hey, sir, put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Hey, get your taser out! Get your taser out! Get your taser out! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! 3-5-3, shots fired.
850 out here. I have one now. I'm laying on the ground. He's breathing right now.
Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Sir, let me see the knife. Drop the knife. Hey, drop the knife. Drop the knife.
Hey, I'm gonna go get some gauze or something. Hey, well, give me the shot. Is the key open? Is the shop key open?
Yeah, here.
I'm gonna go get some gauze or something.
Yeah, go get medical. Let me see a knife. Drop it. Drop the knife out of your hand. Drop the knife. .353, one white male. He's been shot multiple times. Conscious and breathing. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. All officers on scene are fine. He's good. Both knives are right there.
You the one?
Yeah, I'm the one who shot.
Go ahead and chop.
Okay.
Go.
Hey, both knives right there. Just help them out with medical, okay? Hey, do you have the shop keys?
I mean, we can't get through the road because there's so many cars, so yeah, it's kind of an issue.
They were parking over there in the car.
Okay.
The music's gonna have to get turned down unless y'all have a permit from the city.
Even if they have a permit, doesn't the permit like end at 11 though?
They can get it to
Extended?
go later, but it has to be like a.
Wow, that is really loud.
Alright, here, let's move over here. Alright, what's going on?
Earlier, we had a neighborhood across the street. He came simple with it.
Oh yeah, that's the same guy. He threatened us to shoot us.
No, so he came.
They got a picture of it. He had a knife.
He came inside, but like when I went up to him, to approach him, like, what was going on? He just screamed at me. He was like, hey, you gotta turn that off.
Did he show you any weapons or anything? They got a picture.
After, like, I guess he was screaming at us, so we knew, like, we're trying to get off the property. You're inside, you think it was.
Hey, can you go to someone and tell them that
You mind going right now though? You mind going right now and telling them to turn down music?
already you exactly? Yeah, but that place that I'll be back. I don't care. What else?
knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Hey, put the knife down!
Yes, 3B53, can we get HFD out here? I have one male laying on the ground. He's breathing right now, but he's shot. He was shot 3 times.
Sir, let me see the knife. Drop the knife. Hey, drop the knife. Drop the knife.
Hey, I'm gonna go get. Hey, I'm gonna go get some gauze or something. Hey, give me that shit. Is the key open? Is the shop keys open?
Yeah, here.
I'm gonna go get some gauze or something.
Yeah.
There be 5-3. The suspect has been shot. Why is this not happening? There be 5-3. Officer shot suspect. He's over there. He's already. I don't know if this most I have.
One.
Just keep the light on.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Are there any on the extremities?
All
Are there any
right.
on the
So, from the sounds of it, we can tell
We can't get through the road.
that Grande Fiesta, mucho cerveza. Yeah. If you've never been to a Latino party, you're missing out. These people know how to party, and they throw down. Latinos are probably some of the most chill and relaxed people that you could be around. Their parties are they're very festive, very joyful, and boisterous. It's like the definition of a party when they throw a party. Like, it's everything you want a party to be. When I've done private security for Latino parties, I have almost zero to no problems out of that crowd. Now, just like with any crowd of people, there's going to be some people who, cause some minor trouble. There's just some people, no matter, what your background is, where you're from, there's always going to be some people who you just should not take out to public to drink. They need to stay their ass at home. And so I've encountered people like that before, but I've also encountered people like that with other types of people. White people, black people, Bosnians, you name it. There's always going to be someone from whatever crowd who just doesn't need to go out and drink in public. So, aside from, dealing with people like that, really no problems out of the Latino crowd. Like I said, they're probably the most chill, laid-back group of people that you could ever go hang out with. Very, very happy and friendly and just very generous, and they love to cook at their parties too. Like if you like Mexican food, shit, you need to go to a Mexican party where they're cooking like they're at home. It is good. Anyway, so sounds like one heck of a party's going on. Guarantee you that everyone there is most likely having a good time, not causing any problems. The only quote-unquote problem that is arisen from them having their party is loud noise, and the vehicle parking problem. At the end of the day, the biggest concern out of it is the parking. Like the people who came to that party, they just don't know how to park their damn cars. And this is causing a problem because what if a fire truck or an ambulance needed to get down this road? They're not going to be able to do it very easily. So these people need to learn how to park further into the grass. The people who are holding the party there at their house, I think, should have communicated to people who were coming a little bit better, like, hey, don't park your car all the way in the street. Like, park in as much of the grass as you can park it into. And maybe, depending on where they're at, maybe even say, hey, here is the, Walmart, park your car here. We'll have our cousin drive the van and pick you up at the Walmart and bring you to the house. And then we'll drive you back to your car when you're done. Whatever. They could have done something a little bit better in terms of that. Not just for fire trucks and ambulances to get down the road, but for the neighbors too. Like, that's almost kind of inconsiderate for the neighbors. The sound. So, I don't know what it is with some cultures and the volume of music. Some of them, like if you could give them 100 microphone or megaphones, 100 loudspeakers to blast music through, like they would use it no matter what, with no care about bass or treble or anything like that. Like they don't care if it sounds good, they just want it loud. And there is some finessing you can do with sound to make it the quality of it better. Like you just can't take a megaphone and stick it in front of a band and expect that what that microphone does at stock performance is going to make the band sound any better. It's just going to make them a little bit louder, and it's just not going to sound very good. And I've seen this out of more than just the Latino culture. Lots of different cultures will just play the music very loud. And I think that has probably something to do with a lack of good quality sound systems. I've been around good quality sound systems, good speakers, a good soundboard that has, it looks like a freaking control board on a spaceship. It has like 100 little knobs to control, sound. And I don't even know what the hell the terminology is for a lot of that stuff is anyway, but I've been around sound systems that, cannot just bring up the volume of the music and the instruments and everything, but make it sound good. Instead of just making it sound like you've taken a loudspeaker and stuck it in front of the fucking microphone or stuck it in front of the drums and just, trying to pump out, 100 watts of sound without, fine tuning it. Had they brought the overall volume down, it probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But I think that just that super loud, annoying volume level was probably what ticked dude off. Would there have been any other problems as far as noise and stuff like that? I don't know. It doesn't seem like anyone else has called and complained. By the timestamp, it's like 11 something, 30 minutes after 11. I would have figured well before 11 with the volume of that music that other people would have called already. It doesn't seem apparent that anyone else has called to complain about the noise. So it seems like maybe only that guy was taking issue with it. But he seemed to be unstable enough as it was to be continuously walking towards an armed officer with knives in his hand. So it's feasible that almost anything probably could have ticked him off. I don't know. When it comes to vehicles blocking the street like this and impeding the ability for emergency vehicles to get through, something like this is where I would 100% agree with start sending in tow trucks. Just call all of them on the list. If there's like 5-10 different tow companies on a rotation list, call all 10 of them. Tell them to bring multiple trucks and just start hooking up, and people will get the message real quick. Like once you start getting the first 5 vehicles hooked up, people are going to, hell, even the first vehicle, people are going to notice that, and they're going to be running out to their cars and moving them. So tow trucks can be very beneficial. Even if you cannot physically tow all 100 cars, they don't know you can't tow all 100 cars, right? All you got to do is just tow a couple, and that will get the rest of the people to, shit, my car's going to get towed, and they'll go up there and move it. So this call that comes out, in the beginning, it says that dispatched, well, if I can get to a disturbance call at a residence on Palmyra Street. And they're saying that the dude had come by came by holding a knife. Now, so
Palmyra Street. A witness there reported to officers that a man
So this part right here is a little confusing. This is why I wish they would have provided the 911 call tape to kind of get a better idea of how this call came out. Did it just come out as a loud noise complaint kind of call? Did it come out as these people called to say, hey, this dude's threatened to stab us, he's threatened to shoot us, or how did it come out? That's what I want to know. So it seems a little unclear on how it got dispatched out. The issue that I see, or the potential issue that I see, is that if it was dispatched out that there was a person with a weapon threatening to harm people, and based off how those dudes were talking, they were saying that the guy had made a threat to shoot the place up. If that's how the dispatch call came out, then these officers should have gotten out with long guns. If there's a person reported to be with a deadly physical weapon like a gun, that is definitely high risk. That is something you need to be getting out with a rifle or shotgun. Long guns are better for gunfights. They stop the gunfights faster. long guns are more accurate and they have better terminal ballistics compared to pistols. Pistols suck. They really do. Even if it had come out that the guy was armed with a knife, one of them still should have gotten out with a long gun. It is a deadly physical weapon that he is reported to have, or could have been reported to have. And when that happens, you bring the best deadly physical weapon you got, and that's going to be your long gun. Unfortunately, this ends up being one of my biggest gripes when it comes to videos like this. Officers are neglecting to get long guns out. I believe this is a multi-faceted problem. Bunch of, or multiple pieces going into why it's happening. One of them is a lack of realistic training with rifles that instills a good fighting mindset with rifles. And when you look at regular patrol officers in these kind of videos, there's a lot of them who just don't get rifles out. When you look at these videos and there's an officer who is on a SWAT team, or either they're fully kitted out and they're there with the whole team, or that patrol officer was a SWAT team member, they just weren't out on a SWAT call, you will oftentimes see those officers with rifles. And that is because they have a higher level of training. They get more trigger time, and the higher level of training they get it more exposure to other curriculum that is well above what only normal patrol officers get. So at the patrol, just the basic patrol academy level, I don't think the training is up to par for the most part. And I think that in some places it is administrative red tape. And what I mean by that is the administration putting in policies that kind of restrictively influence the officers. So making a policy that says you have to notify a supervisor that you've gotten a rifle out, and that you have to write a report on why you got this rifle out. Nobody likes writing reports. Nobody likes doing more reports on top of all the other damn reports they have to do. So that, coupled with the fact that gunfights are not happening every single day. If you look at your local level, when's the last time your local agency's been in a gunfight? And if it was recent, when was the last time before that? It's probably been a while. So not getting into gunfights every day, they're thinking, well, what's the likelihood that I'll need this rifle? Probably pretty low. I don't want to get it out and write a stupid-ass report on it. I already got all these damn accident and theft reports I got to fully complete. I don't want to be writing a report on a stupid rifle, getting it out, so I just won't get it out. There's unfortunately some agencies that have policies like that towards tasers. Officer pulls a taser out of the holster and doesn't deploy it. Just maybe turns it on to get red dot compliance out of someone. They have to write a report on why they pulled their taser out of their holster. There's even a few agencies out there that are mandating for officers to write reports on if they take their pistol out of their handgun. I'm sorry, take their pistol out of their handgun. Take their pistol out of their holster. So what's that doing? That's making some officers just not get their pistols out of their holster. That's wrong. That is setting them up for failure. That is modifying their behaviors in a way that is detrimental. So those are some of the reasons that kind of go into why I think officers are neglecting to get their rifles out. They're just not having a lot of good, realistic training or relevant training that instills that good fighting mindset into them. There's some administrative red tape, and just the day in, day out of the job is just not getting in the gunfights every single day. So that they're not putting two and two together, so to speak, to see that, oh yeah, rifles is what we need. If it was the reverse, if they were getting in the gunfights every single day, multiple times a day, I think we'd see a pretty quick paradigm shift in this issue. So, should have had a rifle out going to this call. If it came out dispatch that the dude was armed with a weapon, or there's a report of a weapon, blah blah blah. It could have just been, reported as a loud noise complaint. I mean, that happens all the freaking time. That happens when people who live under the second story or third story don't like it when the people who live above them are running around with tap dance shoes, making all kinds of noise. It doesn't even have to be loud music. It just be people, making a bunch of noise in an apartment somewhere. And so loud noise complaints are pretty common. They mostly all kind of fizzle out into being nothing. They're low risk calls, very low risk calls. So, if it came out as a noise complaint, no need for them to be getting a rifle out at that point. Now, the minute that one of them had said that the guy had threatened to shoot them with a gun and indicated he had a weapon, that should have changed a little bit on how these officers were reacting there. So they're getting this story that the dude, said he's going to come back and shoot him up, blah, blah, blah. And they're still just kind of standing there listening to the story. And they indicate that the guy's nearby. So I think what should have happened after that point is one of these people, most likely her, should have taken a step back and take a position of what would be kind of described as like an overwatch position, where they're standing back, they're not fully involved in this conversation that's going on, or they're not fully distracted, and they're on the lookout. They're watching, seeing if they can see this person coming up, if they have a weapon, etc. And she could have taken a step back, got back here in this little driveway area, head on a swivel, looking back and forth. As soon as she saw someone suspicious, call it out to her partner, and then they go from there. It seems like to me that she is probably new, based off how she does not seem to be taking a very proactive, kind of primary kind of stance on things. It's obvious that this guy is the primary officer. He's the one who is the first point of contact, is making calls and stuff. But still, out of her, it just seems like to me that she's probably new, and that he's probably training her on how they do things in their area. So dude with the knife starts to make the approach, and the officer recognizes that, hey, he's got something in his hands. And the human eye is always going to be better than a camera. And we can't tell very well that he has anything in his hands, but you can tell that his fists are clenched right here. So people just don't normally walk around with clenched fists like that. So that could have been what clued him into this guy possibly having something in his hands. It's likely that his human eye was able to see light reflecting off the blades, or he could just see the blades themselves from where he was at, or could see something where he was at, even though we can't really see anything at all. So good on him for recognizing this guy's got something in his hands. People's hands are something that you need to be paying attention to. That and their eyes. Those two things, I think, are probably the most important things to pay attention to at the very beginning of an encounter with someone, and throughout that encounter too, because the eyes are the window to the soul, and the hands can telegraph a lot of things, as do the eyes. So good on him for noticing dude's got weapons. Very quickly pulls out his lethal weapon, and just now noticing his tattoo. That's a weird looking face on his arm right there. Yeah. So anytime a person is presented with deadly physical weapons, you are to respond with a deadly physical weapon. So some people would complain, all he had was a knife. Couldn't they just tased him? Well, yeah. There's two of them, so that possibility did, in a little bit kind of way, exist. But this was very fluid. It happened very quickly. The guy did not follow commands to stop. He kept coming at them. And the officer walked into an unmovable object. His back was against the wall, essentially, at this point. So he reached his line in the sand and was not going to allow that guy to get any closer to him. The female officer did transition to her taser, but it happened so quickly that she did not fire a cartridge off at this guy. The first response is an armed response. Less lethal weapons do have failure rates. They do have the chance to fail, and they fail often. There's plenty of taser videos out there to prove that. Plenty of videos where people have been shot with a taser and they don't go down. They don't stop doing what they're doing. They continue to fight, even when you hear the taser cycling. This guy was super close. If this officer had decided to pull his taser first and deploy taser and it was ineffective, the guy could have very quickly closed the distance and began slashing and stabbing and seriously physically injuring this officer and or killing him before the officer could get his gun out of the holster and put incapacitating rounds on target. So the first response is always an armed response. And then, if there's someone else there, that person can go to a less lethal weapon. Now, there is two of them there. Well, they're both responding appropriately by pulling deadly physical weapon out. There hasn't been any communication at this point on, hey, I'm going to pull gun, you're going to pull taser. It happens instantaneously. Like, as soon as he recognizes the knives, he responds with an armed response. He does begin to communicate to her to get the taser out. But again, it happens very rapidly, and they don't have time on their side. It's playing against them because this guy is dictating what is going on. He fights, fires some rounds into the guy goes down. He assesses what's going on with him. We kind of see him look around a little bit. You can call that a scan. And then he stops from there and he holsters his gun. So what I would have liked to have seen him to do after that is to top his gun off. He does start talking after that. So that's the communications part. There's no real full need for him to take cover at this point. He could have stood back a little bit further from this guy in case he very quickly rolled and lunged at him from the ground. But definitely would have liked to have seen a top off. So this is called the Wyatt protocol, the FAST protocol. You fight, assess, scan, top off. We know from watching the video that he fired about 3 rounds. To him, he may have recognized that he only fired 3 rounds, or he may not have no idea how many rounds he fired. And that happens. There's been a lot of people who were asked after a shooting, how many rounds did you fire? And they either gave a number that was too high or they gave a number that was too low. Some people get it right. Some people get pretty close to what it was. But just know that you may not fully know how many rounds you fired, because when fight or flight occurs, you have this huge adrenaline dump. Your brain starts to change a little bit in how it's operating. So in a normal, cool, calm environment, in an academic environment, you are using your forebrain the most. That is the one that is mostly in charge. when you start to go into fight or flight, your monkey brain starts to take over. That's your midbrain. And your midbrain power strengthens, and forebrain starts to weaken a little bit. So if you were to be able to kind of replicate the conditions for a person in fight or flight, send them through a haunted house, put them through a force on force scenario, get that fight or flight trigger response started in them, and then throw them some, math equations and stuff like that. They're going to have and if they're, decent at math, they're going to have a hard time concentrating and working those problems, because forebrain just isn't really at the forefront at that point. Midbrain is taking more of a dominant role in what's going on. And monkey brain is monkey brain. The thing that sets humans apart from monkeys is our forebrains. That's what gives us our Picassos and our Beethovens, etc. But when the animalistic stuff starts to occur, that shit goes out the window, and our basic instincts, our primordial self kicks in, and you can start to experience things like auditory exclusion, where some people reported they never heard the gunfight or never heard the gunfire. They didn't hear their gun go off. There's people who experience time distortion, where there's bits of the memory of the event that is missing right there within the first 24 hours after the thing occurring. And this is why it's not a good idea to make a statement right after a shooting. You wait 24 hours before you make a statement, because as time passes, some of those details start to come back. You remember one thing, and then you're like, oh yeah, that happened too. Whereas 2 minutes right after the thing occurred, there may be some key details that you just don't remember. You're kind of scatterbrained a little bit. There's your perception of things may seem like, things are really slow, or things were like super fast. Certain, like I said, details you just can't vividly recall. You can't recall exactly what the person said. You can't recall exactly what they were wearing, but you could, describe in detail what the freaking muzzle of the gun looked like, because you threat focused on it so hard. And out of all that, you may not even recognize how many rounds you actually fired. So it's always in your best interest to go ahead and do a reload after you fired. Even if you think that you fired 2 or 3 rounds, you could be wrong, because your forebrain's not in a dominant position anymore. Your midbrain is, and midbrain doesn't do counting very well. It's monkey brain, right? So your training, in my opinion, should involve topping your gun off after having to shoot it. That way, if the fight starts back up again, you have a gun with a fresh magazine in it. And it's always best to start a gunfight off with a fresh magazine versus a partially depleted one. You always want to do reloads on your terms when you want to do them, not being forced into them. Doing a reload because you have fired a slide lock is a shitty time to be doing a reload, because that is not on your terms. So always be reloading when it is safe for you to do so, when you have the ability to do it. So he fought, assessed, probably scanned. He did not top off, so should have topped off. So she talks about they call their cars shops, and that's something that's kind of unique to, I guess, some of these agencies down in Texas. Around here, we call our police cars cruisers or squad car. this is the first, well, not this exact time is the first time I've heard it, but first time hearing of shop has been with these agencies in Texas. I don't think I've heard anywhere else refer to a police car as a shop. But she's asking, is it open, and does he have the keys? So that tells me that there's only one set of keys for this vehicle. There's one key for this vehicle, and he has it, and she don't have anything. That's wrong. If there's going to be two people in a vehicle, they both need to have keys to that vehicle. If the vehicles, and there's not many vehicles like this left anymore, but if the vehicles are, taking an actual physical key, then both officers need to have an actual physical key to be able to get into that damn car. If it's a key fob, remote start kind of thing, then they both need to have a key fob on them. And when agencies go to buy these vehicles, they come with more than one key fob. Hell, sometimes some of them come with like six freaking key fobs on them. And there's some agencies who opt to do, I think they call it fleet keying, where all the keys open all the cars. So that's an issue, that she is unable to get into that vehicle. She needs to be able to get into that vehicle to utilize that vehicle's radio system, because the mobile radio, its transmitting power is far greater than the portable radio that they're carrying on them. Has a long gun in there, has medical gear in there, has other gear in there that could be beneficial in something. And if he has the only key to this vehicle and he's in an area where she can't get to him, he's too far away, and she can't keep up, whatever scenario you can think of, that's a problem. So everyone who's going to be working out of one particular vehicle needs to have a key to be able to access that vehicle in an emergency. This right here is a supervisory issue right here. This is bad leadership, not making sure that these people have the appropriate tools or equipment.
Drop the knife. Drop the knife.
So the guy still has the knives in his hands, and he's given him multiple verbal commands to drop these things. At this point, it would have been perfectly acceptable, in my opinion, to continue using force against this guy. Maybe not necessarily utilizing deadly physical force, but he definitely could have done something such as deploy a taser into this guy. He could have deployed pepper spray into this guy's face. He could have used the baton, potentially, to approach from the back and strike him right there on the side and get a better gauge on, is this person becoming unconscious? Are they unconscious? At this point, the guy, from what we can see, he appears to possibly be going unconscious, or is kind of unconscious, but you don't know that for sure. The guy could be playing possum. So if when the officer was back here to the rear, taking the baton out and doing a quick strike to his thigh, and then doing a quick step back, that could have been a good way to gauge whether or not this guy was faking it. There's not that many people who are going to be able to not show any signs that a baton didn't, hurt them in any way. There are people who can continue to fight and resist through baton strikes, but when you hit them, you can still see that it hurts. You can see them react to those hits, and especially if the guy was playing possum and his back is turned, he can't see exactly if this officer is going to swing a baton on him or not. So a strike to the leg wouldn't without him knowing it, he wouldn't have been able to brace for it or prepare himself for it. And so a strike to the leg right there with a baton, if he was conscious and playing possum, it would have had a reaction to him. He definitely would have reacted to that. He would have winced. He would have jerked at it. He would have repelled in the pain from it. It would have been noticeable that he was conscious and playing possum. If the guy didn't move, didn't hardly flinch at all, that would probably be a good indication that he's not playing possum and he really is unconscious. Same with taser. I think deploying taser into his back would have been an acceptable thing to do. Fire taser into the back, achieve NMI, and arrest under power. So that's taser training 101. The nice thing about taser is when you deploy it into someone and you achieve NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation, they have no control over their limbs. They can't control to bend their arm or grip something or pull something or push something, anything. They lose control over that. So that's a good, perfect opportunity to put their arms behind their back and put handcuffs on them. They can't resist you. That's why, like when people are on the ground and they draw their arms up under them and they won't give you their hands, that is the perfect opportunity to deploy taser into someone and achieve NMI, because they're not going to be able to hold their arms up under themselves any longer after that point. You're going to be able to gain control of them. That's called arresting under power. If you pay attention in taser training, you'd have remembered that. So definitely, I think taser probably could have been the number one choice to go there. And then the other options, he could have went with pepper spray. If the dude was playing possum, definitely would have gotten a reaction out of him. And again, like with the baton, people can fight through that. People can resist. I don't want to say resist it, but they can fight through that pain. It won't physically incapacitate them. If the dude was playing possum and he squirted him in the face with the pepper spray, he would have gotten a reaction out of that. The guy would have started coughing and cussing most likely and complaining about the burning sensation, etc. If the guy was truly unconscious and he sprayed him, he wouldn't have gotten much of a reaction out of him at all. Maybe some coughing and more heavy breathing, but it wouldn't have been arms flailing and trying to wipe the face and stuff like that. The other issue is the girl just taking off running. So this officer is now by himself, left to deal with this guy, and his backup has left. So what if this guy was playing possum and he goes over there to get these knives off of him, and then boom, he starts to attack, or he does a Michael Myers kind of move and grabs him by the wrist and pulls him down with him and starts stabbing him or whatever. His backup was down the street, wouldn't have been able to get there in time to make much of a difference. So I think she should have stayed, wait until they cuffed him before she skedaddled out of there and went to go grab the medical gear. Definitely, while one is trying to remove the weapons and take the person into custody, someone else needs to be there providing lethal cover in the event that that person becomes a lethal threat again. You hear them talking on the radios, but you don't hear any background noise with the radio. That's because they have earpieces in. There's quite a few officers out there who will use earpieces on their radios, and the reason why they do that is so that the people that they're talking to in person, like those people they were talking to by that truck, if they're on a traffic stop and they run someone's name and dispatch comes back, they got 2 warrants out of blah 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 for trafficking or failure to appear or whatever. Those people don't hear it and they're like, oh, they know I got warrants, I'm gonna run now. So it kind of gives them a bit of a tactical advantage in that sense, that the people that they're dealing with on the streets just can't hear what dispatch is saying. My problem with earpieces is they can fall out too easily. And for me personally, I feel like I kind of produced a little too much earwax, and I've always had a problem with the earpieces becoming compacted with earwax. Even, religiously cleaning my ears out, it's just they always seem to be compacted with earwax, and then taking the time, getting a toothpick and scraping that out, and maintaining the maintenance of them, I just never cared for, and the fact they they too easily fell out, and I've never found one that was comfortable for me. I always felt like a pain in my ear whenever I'd wear the things. So not for me. And the biggest negative to them is they fall out, and although you can still transmit and talk on the radio, you're not going to be able to hear anybody because the earpiece is now out of your ear. You'll have to pull the jack out from the lapel mic to make that lapel mic speaker start working so you can hear from it. So the other officers get there, and they identify him as being the one who shot, and they tell him to go to his car and hang out by himself and don't talk to anybody. So this is a pretty common procedure after a self-defense shooting, is officers are told to go sit by themselves, don't talk to people, and wait for a supervisor to come collect their gun, and wait for their representation to come to where they are, or go to where they need their representation. You have the right to not self-incriminate. Now, not saying that what he has done is wrong, not at all. He's 100% justified. But just like everyone else, you don't have to make statements. You don't have to answer questions to the police right then and there. You can remain silent. That is your right. And that is a right that you should exercise after a self-defense shooting, because you are under the influence of a drug called adrenaline. You can say some very jittery things under the effects of adrenaline. You could say things that you normally wouldn't say. You could say them in a way, in a tone that you normally wouldn't say. And if the other side, sees this, they could be like, "Oh, did you hear what he said? He said I shot the son of a bitch. Oh, that shows malice. He didn't shoot him in self-defense. He murdered him. He called him a son of a bitch." Attorneys are very manipulative, and they can take the tiniest little statements and words and twist them and turn them around in such a way that makes you look like a monster. So you have to be careful in what you say. Even if you are 110% justified, there's no doubt that you're justified, you still have to be careful in what you say and how you say it, because it can still be a problem to you. So you have that right to remain silent, and you should do it. As I mentioned earlier, you can have some time distortion type of issues, auditory exclusion things that happen during the fight, and you may not be able to recall very vividly 10 minutes after this gunfight what happened. And if you gave a story 10 minutes after this gunfight happened and it's not very accurate because your brain's kind of scrambled at this point, then later on when you give another statement, that other statement's going to look a whole lot different, or could look a whole lot different than that first statement. And what's the other side going to do with that? Oh, well, look at all these inconsistencies in these stories. This is his first statement he gave, and now this is his second statement. Clearly, he's fucking lying. He's a murderous cop, or he's a murderous person who he wasn't defending himself. He was waiting for this opportunity to kill someone. He was a unhinged Rambo. Blah 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 blah. So it's always best to wait 24 hours after a self-defense shooting before giving a statement, because You could just say things wrong. You could say them in a way that just don't sound right. Some details that could be missing that you just did not remember right there in the moment, but you ended up remembering a day later, etc. So that's why officers are made to go sit by themselves and not talk to anyone, because people have body cameras on. People have microphones on their uniforms that go back to their car cameras, etc. So they don't want someone talking and all that stuff being captured by those recording devices and then end up being used against that person. We don't see what happens after he leaves, but probably most likely what has happened after that point is the supervisors come up to him, probably told him to go ahead and turn his camera off, maybe took his firearm from him and collected it as evidence, and then made arrangements for someone to drive him back to the station to, complete crime scene processing by taking photographs of him and taking, parts of his uniform potentially, whatever, and then getting him some services, whether he needs services of a chaplain, going to the doctor, etc., and then getting him to his house, or to his car to be able to go to his house, whatever. So from her perspective, again, like I said, it seems like to me she's kind of new. She seems to be kind of just following him around. He's acting more primary. All right, let's watch this taser stuff again. And that stopped the music real quick. But they're like, oh shit, someone's shooting. And so you can see the back of that truck right there. This is what he backed up into. Anytime you're backing up and you hit something that's not moving, your back is against the wall at that point. You have no more ability to back up. You can't just start turning around, looking around, like, oh, where am I going to go at now? Because then you're taking your eyes off the threat. This was his line in the sand. He hit his back to something. He was unable to move backwards any further. This guy's closing the distance. You have to act on that. You just can't wait to see what they do. She does pull her taser out, but it does not appear as though she deploys it. So she pulls it, points it, and then starts to issue verbal commands. Personally, I don't think she should have even wasted her time giving this person a verbal command. He's already been given multiple fucking verbal commands at this point. He has guns pointed at him. She should have just immediately pulled taser, acquired sights on him. You can see with her style taser that she has, being the taser 7, she has 2 dots, a green dot and a red dot. So that shows the approximation of where the probes are going to hit. As soon as she got that, she should have pulled trigger and deployed cartridge on this dude. And attempt to achieve NMI. This appears to be a pretty good spread right here. I don't think that they would have had an issue achieving NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation. He seems to have a thin tank top shirt on and thin shorts on. So I think those probes would have most likely penetrated those. They don't appear to be baggy or anything like that. So I think they would have penetrated those very easily, got into his skin, and had enough spread to achieve NMI. we're talking maybe a second or two that was lost on her trying to give him verbal commands. Had she fired as soon as she gained sights on this guy, would it have made a difference? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I said, I think it would have achieved NMI, but it was so close right there to where this officer's back was against this thing. He couldn't back up any further, and then he fires. So it could have turned out to where she fired taser, and then immediately after that, he fires his gun. And that's something that you'll see in some of these videos sometimes. You'll see someone with a handgun, someone with a taser, and because the things are so fluid, everything's happening very quickly and kind of all at once, you'll see that a person does fire their taser, but it's almost right at the same time that the other person has made that conscious decision to shoot their gun and are just going through the steps to shoot the gun, and they end up shooting the gun almost at the same time the taser has been deployed. So it's like they were all thinking at the same time, pull trigger, and sometimes taser person is the first one to pull, or sometimes you'll see a person shoot their gun and then the person with the taser deploys their taser. Some of those I think are just by happenstance. Both were thinking the same thing at the same time, almost at the same time. And then some of those I do think are kind of sympathetic reflexes, I guess you could say, where a taser gets deployed, and because a taser uses a primer in them to propel the nitrogen capsule forward, it makes a loud popping noise, like party poppers. And I think that some people, when they fire a taser, it has a startle reflex, has a startle reflex on the others, and they boom pull the triggers on their guns because it does sound kind of like gunfire, very muted gunfire. So she doesn't appear to get any taser probes out, and then she decides that she's going to leave him there and then go to the car. So I've already talked about leaving him there. Now she gets to the vehicle, and she seems to have some difficulties getting the rear gate open. So I think this is a Tahoe, maybe. I'm not really sure what this is. I don't know what the issue with the lift gate there is. I don't know why she wasn't able to get it open. In my experience, you stick a key into a hole and you turn it, it should unlock and come open. It looked like she had to go inside the car. Looked like maybe turn the ignition to a position and then hit the trunk release to get it to come open. I don't know. It seemed to be a lot of finagling going on there to get this damn truck opened up. So that's something that you should know, the operations of a vehicle. Like, you should know if you're going to be able to get that vehicle to open or not with what you got, or if there's a certain process to get it open. So like my Dodge Charger, for example, when the vehicle is off, I can't press the trunk release inside the cab of the vehicle and get the trunk to open. That's disabled. In the consumer model vehicles, I think that's turned on, that works. But in the police model Chargers, that's disabled, and for good reason, so that people can't break out the side window, hit the trunk release, and then potentially gain access to rifles and stuff like that. So the only time that the trunk release button on the inside of the cab works is when the vehicle's in the on position, and then the trunk can open. Or you have to hit the key fob trunk release to get it to come open. Or utilize your key to go to the back and open it. So little things like that is things that you should know about the operation of that vehicle, especially going to be working in and around it. You need to know how to get to things in that car. Now, some agencies have just one style of vehicle. Some may have just 2 styles of vehicle. Other agencies may have multiple styles of vehicles. If it's an agency that has 1 or 2 styles of vehicles, it should be pretty easy to learn the ins and outs of those cars. But when you got an agency that's using Chargers and then Explorers and then Tahoes and then Crown Vics and Impalas, there's some agencies that have like 6-7 different freaking models of vehicles in their fleet. So yeah, it can be kind of difficult to really remember the order of operations for all those vehicles. But the vehicle that you're going to be operating in and out of, you need to know how that car works. You need to know those small details. That's a life safety kind of issue right there. Oops. So she gets the vehicle open and starts rummaging around the back. And the medical gear is inside this big black bag. She has to move some stuff out of the way to gain access to it, and then she gets it out. So I like how she knew exactly where it was. She didn't have to start pulling a bunch of things out to get to it. She knew it was in this bag. My only problem is it was under some things. So in my opinion, medical gear should never be under stuff. It should be on top of stuff. You should be taking that conscious effort to make sure that when you put stuff in the trunk or the cargo hold, you take that medical gear, set it to the side, throw all your crap in, and then set that medical gear on top. That way, in an emergency, that's the first thing you can be able to grab is your medical gear. You don't have to dig under a bunch of bags and move traffic cones and move the box of flares and all this other junk to get to your medical gear. It should be on top, ready to go. For sedans, the trunk lid, I've seen attachments where you can basically have a med kit hanging from the trunk lid when it opens. I think that's the best way to do it, because there's no way that if it's attached to that trunk lid that anything else is going to be piled on top of it, right? Like gravity is going to prevent that from happening. So that's a great place to put stuff like that. You could even do it with the rear hatch door on the SUVs. Put something on the interior side of it so that when you open that gate, boom, it's hanging right there. The walls of the cargo hold, you can still attach something to the uppermost part of those. The cage in the back, you could have stuff potentially zip tied to it, hanging off that rearmost portion of it, whatever, to kind of have it at the top and more easily accessible. Medical gear should always be very easily accessible. You should not have to hunt for medical gear. Another thing too is, everyone likes all the tactical colors, black and, Ranger green and coyote and flat dark earth. Medical gear should not be, in my opinion, especially stuff you're going to be leaving in the car, it shouldn't be any of those dark colors. It should be something like bright ass red or orange or blue, something like that. Something that's like, it's unmistakable what it is and it's easy to grab. Now, if you're out in the field, in your camouflage, obviously you don't want something big and orange on you giving you away. So in those contexts, yeah, you got to go with the tactical color. But if it's going to be riding in your car all the time, it doesn't have to be a tactical color. It could be a bright red color. She gets there with the med kit, and she's kind of delegated to holding the flashlight, basically. And let's see if I can back this up, get a better freeze frame real quick. It doesn't appear to be that big of a kit. It seems like a little IFAC, individual first aid kit, or improved first aid kit, whatever terminology you want to use. It just has some of the very basic stuff in there for TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care. Whether you have a small IFAC, you got a large medical bag, trauma bag, BLS bag, whatever, one piece of equipment that I think should be in all of those is a headlamp. Yeah, like a simple headlamp that you use for camping. Because at night, if you are by yourself or if it's just you and one other person, it may be difficult for you to be able to render medical aid efficiently when one of you is going to have to hold a flashlight with one hand. And when you tie one hand up like that, that one free hand you got left is limited in what it can do. And generally, you need both hands when you're giving medical care to people. So a headlamp, I think, is probably one of the best accessories you could have with your medical kit. And you should have a headlamp in there. Yeah, you might be able to take your patrol light and tuck it under your armpit, put it in the crook of your neck and shoulder and hold it there like that. If you have a smaller light, you may even be tempted to put that light in your mouth. I don't recommend that because then you're not able to talk when you got a flashlight in your mouth. And when you do need to talk, what are you going to do? You're going to reach up and pull that light out of your mouth. Well, what are you reaching up there with? Your hands. Where have your hands been? They've been on this person who's bleeding. So do you really want to grab something, contaminate it with bodily fluids, and then stick that thing back in your mouth? Hell no. So a headlamp makes a whole lot more sense. Take the headlamp, girth hitch it to, the molly stuff on the outside of the bag, or put it inside the bag, whatever. Get the headlamp out, put it on, click it on, boom. You now have hands-free lighting. Since some of this stuff is going to be left in vehicles, I strongly recommend that you put lithium batteries in them because lithium batteries hold up better to cold temperatures. They operate more effectively in cold temperatures. They hold a charge better throughout cold winter times and hold a charge for a longer period of time. You take lithium batteries and they're still going to have about a 70% charge after 10 years. So that's pretty good. Where you take alkaline batteries, they don't last that very long. They perform poorly in cold winter, and you have increased likelihood of acid leaks out of alkaline batteries and ruining the electronics that it's in. So he seemed to remove most of his clothing, and that's a good thing. Use shears and get that clothing off, get them fully exposed to be able to see what kind of injuries they've got, and then start treating those injuries. You don't have x-ray vision. You can't see through their clothing or anything like that. So the best thing to do is just take their clothing all the way off. Some people, I guess, seem to have a problem with that. They don't want to have, someone laying there naked or something like that. I see no problem in it. It is for medical purposes. You are assessing for injuries to be able to treat. And, the fact of the matter is, these people brought this stuff upon themselves. Like, if the dude didn't want to be having his last memory out there of people seeing him naked on the ground, then he shouldn't have come with a police officer with knives in his hands. Right? Alright, that is all I wanted to talk about. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.